Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth and we talk about the latest home video releases. We have a good time. Some are really good, some are really bad. We have a really great lineup this week, though. I know I say this all the time, but I feel like this week in particular is going to be a good one. But I'm going
Oh
to
yeah.
let you start this party up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So yeah, this week nearly killed me, as everyone will see through my titles. I viewed like over 20 movies for this week, which is insane. So if I'm a little fried, that's why. But I want to start off with a bang. I'm very excited. This is a quartet of movies coming from Scream Factory very soon, and it is the Chucky 4 through 7. I'll go title by title, but these are the new 4K Ultra HD releases. And I'll try to keep these as brief and spoiler free as possible for those who haven't seen them, because I had actually not seen all of these. I think I'd only seen maybe the fifth one out of these. I talked about the first three, I think, on our holiday gift guide episode a little while ago. So they're kind of finishing off the series. And the next one up after the first three is Bride of Chucky, which ended up being one of my favorite of the series so far. Yeah, I think it's probably slightly divisive because it is kind of more Chucky, leaning more into the kind of comedy side of the equation and less away from the horror. But there's still some really great kills. There's no reversible cover art here. And then you get the introduction of Tiffany, played by Jennifer Tilly, who I think is a great addition. I really love this one. I love the dynamic between Chucky and Tiffany. Tilly's a lot of fun, and there's a young Katherine Heigl. She does a fine job. The late John Ritter, who I really love, has a very I don't want to spoil stuff, but just his ending in this movie, the way his character ends up is memorable. But yeah, this really just kind of hit the sweet spot for me in these Chucky movies of balancing kind of like some more of the gross kill stuff with like the comedy and still being a little bit creepy. So Bride of Chucky was really good. I'll kind of go over all the audiovisual stuff as a group at the end. Next up was Seed of Chucky, which was the one that I know I'd seen before whenever it came out in like 2005 or so. And this one I think has the worst reputation out of all of them, and I can kind of understand why. I think it probably was the weakest of the ones I'd seen. And this one leans like way more into the comedy, like meta comedy stuff. There's some decent kills in this, but the comedy can be hit or miss. I think what the strongest thing going for this one is, obviously there's a baby in the mix, but I like the dynamics of the questioning of like gender identity between like Glenn and Glenda. I think it's kind of a little bit, it's not always handled in the most like respectful way, but some of the topics that they were kind of broaching within this movie I think was very interesting, even if not completely successful. But John Waters is in this one, and I'll talk about him in a little bit. But hearing him talk about the movie and the special features also was kind of enlightening, just kind of getting his perspective. So, yes, while I think this might be the weakest of the franchise, there's still a part of me that does kind of still like it on some level, but it is definitely the weakest for me. The series took a few years off and then came back with Curse of Chucky, which is really like quietly a banger. Like I think this is good because there's still some comedic elements, but there is definitely leans more towards the horror side of the spectrum, and kind of gets back to kind of where the series started out, without kind of eliminating everything that came with like Bride of Chucky or Seed of Chucky. It kind of develops and kind of loops back in on their larger story in really like an interesting way at the end. And I was glad I stayed through to the post credit sequence because there was like something that like happened that I was like, oh shit. I was like, it was exciting. So, people like experienced this like 10 years ago when it came out, but like, this is me catching up on the series and being like, oh, that's so cool. So I really like a lot of the kills and just like kind of the more sinister tone of this one. I think it really worked very well. So Curse of Chucky is probably another highlight of this. And then this kind of rounded out with Cult of Chucky, which is probably my third favorite of this batch. It's ahead of Seed, but behind the other two. I think this also kind of strikes a pretty good balance, but there's some narrative things within this one that I wasn't completely on board with at the end regarding like Chucky as an entity and how they kind of like frame. I don't want to give stuff away once again, but the way he was utilized near the end and kind of with all like the spirits jumping around, like him, like every movie, it's like potentially him trying to like put his spirit back into like a host body and all this stuff. So it wasn't completely successful. It wasn't as good as Curse of Chucky, but Cult of Chucky was still pretty solid. I like the way that the relationship throughout the series, like with Tiffany, kind of like still maintained a factor, but while not like overshadowing everything. It just keeps doing really well, and I'm interested to check out the Chucky series, which I know you've seen, because I haven't caught up on that. Now that I've seen all the films, I think I'll get even more out of the series. So I'm excited about that. But the reason for these releases they are on 4K. And for the most part, these look really great. I will say Seed of Chucky seems to be the worst looking one. It still looks fine, but it looks more so like a really good Blu-ray rather than like a nice 4K. All of these are in Dolby Vision. The Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky are from the original camera negative, a 4K scan of the original camera negative. The next two were shot on digital, so they are new 4K masters. And those look really nice and sleek and everything. Cult and Curse look really nice and just like vibrant to an extent that these are mostly like darker interiors and everything and kind of desaturated, but there's some elements of like the production design that pop and everything. I think Bride of Chucky is probably the best looking one, just because it has like some very vibrant pieces of production design. You have the shot on film, and it brings out a lot in the filmmaking and has a really nice look. I think I haven't revisited my old like 7-film Chucky collection to do a comparison, but from the reviews I was reading, it seemed like a lot of those masters was like smeared with DNR and like lost a lot of detail and all that stuff. So these have been remastered, so you're going to get a lot more detail, a lot less digital noise reduction, and just like a more authentic appearance that I think really works for these films, especially the earlier ones. But I think all of them do benefit from the 4K. These come with 5.1 and 2.0 sounds. So I will say Cult and Curse of Chucky each come with the unrated cut on the 4K. Both cuts are on the Blu-ray, but kind of a disappointment. Seed of Chucky comes with a theatrical cut on 4K and both cuts on Blu-ray. So I don't know why they didn't do the unrated cut for Seed, considering it's like less than a minute extra of material, but it is included on the Blu-ray disc, which also is where you find the commentary tracks. And all of the legacy special features, from what I can tell, have been ported over. There are no new features on Bride of Chucky. It's just all the legacy features, including audio commentary and some like featurettes and everything. So Bride of Chucky is just like what has been released previously for the most part. Seed of Chucky is where we start getting more into some new special features. I mentioned the John Waters interview. It's not very long. It's like 7 minutes long, but having a new John Waters interview for this is freaking awesome. I think that's a great addition. Also, this one and the next two films has a interview with the special effects supervisor Tony Gardner, who also guests on the commentary tracks. A lot of these have like multiple commentary tracks. Seed has 2 commentary tracks. I think Cult and Curse each have 1 commentary track. So yeah, a couple of new interviews on this one and some new interviews and featurettes with people on Cult and Curse. So Bride is the only one with that new special features, but all of them I think they look the best that they can look. Like I said, Seed is probably the least entertaining film and least impressive visual presentation. But overall, I think all these films are like really good representation from Scream Factory. I really enjoyed revisiting Seed and watching the others for the first time. So if you're a fan of the series, you can round that out on 4K after getting the first three, which were also really great releases if you have not picked them up. So Scream Factory, great job on these, really fun. Love the slip covers. Chucky, he's great. I love him. He's just killing people, being a wise ass. Love it.
I love that series. Even when it's kind of at its worst, it's still pretty fun. The series is really fun, and I think this would kind of be the perfect time to get into it since you're very familiar with all of them now.
Yeah,
because they do add a lot of lore to the series, but they definitely draw heavily, especially in the last three movies.
nice.
I'm excited to get those. I'm gonna wait till they're on sale. It's a little too rich for my blood right now, but
Yeah.
I'm very very excited to, like you said, have the whole series on 4K. That's amazing. So you started out with a bang. So I am as well. This isn't maybe as extravagant, but I was really looking forward to this, and that was Metalocalypse, Army of the Doomstar. And
Nice.
noted, we got a poster. I'll show that off in a second. And nothing super exciting. That's what the disc looks like, which is pretty cool. No interior art. So this does have a digital code that's just not in there now, but if you order it, yours will have one. And here's the post. They haven't taken this out yet, so I'm excited. That's the center.
I love that Warner always gives you these giant ass posters in their releases. It's insane.
Yeah. Very cool. I actually really do want to hang this up along with my other ones, but yeah. I love this series. It's one that I need to sort of re-familiarize myself with, but this makes, I think, a really fitting finale, not only to the series, but this is a follow-up to Doomstar Requiem back in 2013. So I will say from jump that if you are not familiar with this series and you're kind of jumping in, you might be very lost when it comes to this, because it definitely builds a lot on established lore, and it just seems like it would be very difficult to pick things up. Like I think like you would have an okay time watching it without having seen anything else, but it really draws heavily on the last movie and the series. The complete series just came out on the 15th. Now's a great time to check all that out, but I loved Murderface's arc in particular. Like, he's the asshole that brings everybody down. That's sort of his role in the group. There was a fun nod to Planet Piss, his concept album that never got made. Really fun. A lot of great characters come back. A lot of like threads are picked up. The ending is really epic. I think everybody has a really nice sort of send off. It makes me a little sad. I hope that they maybe do like a maybe new series or even a spin-off series would be really cool. We do get a featurette, which is pretty cool. And that's about it as far as special features go. Looks great. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was not a 4K of this. This was just Blu-ray owned.
Yeah, it's similar to Venture Brothers, where Blu-ray was the ceiling.
Yeah, which is fine. The animation's great. Sticks in line with the animation of the series. Kind of like Venture Brothers, you can see that they did have a bigger budget to work with. I didn't do press on that, so I don't know that for sure, but it definitely looks really nice. Looks like a step up from the series. Yeah, I loved it. I just thought it was like the perfect amount of fan service, but also really truly continuing the story. You can tell that they have a consistent team of writers. You know these characters. Everything is just so spot on that it's just a really nice bookend to the series. So yeah, Army of the Doomstar, awesome. Pick it up. If it does really well, maybe we'll get more Metalocalypse content. I'm here for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't, like I told you, I been super busy this week, but that is one I'm definitely interested in getting caught up with because I did really like the series, and I was very excited that they were going to continue it. So very excited to check out that one. My next title, I always struggle with this company's name. I'm just going to keep going with what I always call them, and it could be wrong. This is the newest from Arbeos Films. This is Chameleon Street, which I love that kind of like artistic, like rendering, like painting-esque cover. This I'll just kind of like show off the interior. So here's the disc artwork, and it comes with a booklet here, which I'll show off. And it's not reversible artwork, but here's kind of like an image from the film here. So yeah, and that is an image of writer, director, star Wendell B. Pierce. And so here's the booklet, back of the booklet with a bunch of the characters from the film, and then kind of get a look at some of the writing in here. Nice reproductions of photos and stuff. So a lot of good essays and everything in here. So this was made in the late 80s. This actually won the grand jury prize at the 1990 Sundance Film Festival. But it's never had like a great legacy. It's kind of like been lost almost to the history of cinema, unfortunately. But now we have these great boutique labels like Arbeos who are kind of finding these gems and bringing them back into the public consciousness, which is what happens here. This one's a really interesting story. Is kind of made on a pretty small budget. It's a story. It's based on a true story of a man. It's basically the personification of fake it till you make it. He was kind of a con man. It's a guy who he was very smart, and he's a young black man who kept picking up on what the people around him needed. And he was like Chameleon Street. He's a chameleon. He kind of adapted to every environment he was in. And that led him to serving in various positions that he was not qualified for. He bluffed his way into being a surgeon. He bluffed his way into being a corporate lawyer. He did like get caught several times, but like no one was keeping up with who he was, or like that he was in jail. So he would like get out and do like another con to like get in like with another kind of crazy. So he's like very smart to like, he could fake his way through surgery, but like he like obviously would just get caught through like various means, like, oh, we did like a more intense background check or whatever. But it's a very fascinating story of like his psychology, of like why he's doing this, what kind of like how class and like race dynamics factor into this, and just like his relationship with the women in his life. Like he is married, but then he also meets other women, and it's really a fascinating story. I like never heard of this movie, but then it came onto my radar, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And it was very interesting. So, and yeah, as you know, I host a Sundance themed podcast. So that was kind of like, oh, cool. Like that is even more enticing to me. Like, oh, this played at Sundance and won a prize. The acting is really great. They are like a lot of like very young actors, like inexperienced actors, but they're all very good. And like a lot of people like have an authenticity about them. That it's funny because the director was talking about how whenever he screened the film, people just assumed that he was basically playing himself. He's like, no, this was a character. But people are like asking him questions like he was the character, like, hey, how'd you pull this off? And he's like, no, I wasn't the one running these cons. But this is a really fascinating film. It sounds interesting at all too. I highly recommend it. This comes from a new 4K restoration of the original 35mm camera negative. It looks really great, nice and filmic. It all preserves all the film grain, but never looking clumpy or like digital or anything. It looks very natural. Has the original soundtrack that sounds really nice. This has 2 commentary tracks, one with the director and a moderator, and one with the director and like various members of the cast and crew. So many that I couldn't even keep up with. There's like the production designer would come in and talk for like 3 minutes, and then like the second unit director. There's so many people on this track. It was wild. There's also various legacy special features, including an archival making of, an archival audio interview with the director from like 2007. Also, various short films are included in this, some of which was culled from some of the rehearsal footage for Chameleon Street, which is pretty cool how they kind of repurpose this footage. So theatrical trailers and everything. So overall, really solid release for an independent film that would otherwise probably go unknown. And especially since it's from at the time a young black filmmaker, a lot of these like people of color, like their contributions to cinema kind of sometimes just get overlooked because they don't have as high of a profile. So I'm like that it's getting more of a spotlight. So Chameleon Street, it's a good release from Marbellos. If you appreciate or are interested in any of this, definitely check it out.
And I also just want to echo that Home Dance is great. Y'all should be checking that out. I always have the link in the description. It's a really good time. Obviously, y'all have chemistry, but it's almost like you're together or something. I don't
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah.
know.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next title, gosh, it was one of those I wanted to like it so bad, despite the reviews. And that was the 4K of Legend of Zorro.
Mm.
Um, and this and the back. I believe these extras are all just port overs from the previous releases. So yeah, you covered the first one, correct? You reviewed that.
Yeah, I covered that back in like March, I believe. The Steelbook of re-release of the 4K.
Yeah, and that one is so great. It's amazing. Great, no notes. Again, I really wanted to like this one, but I didn't. It's not without its charm, and I'll get to that. But yeah, as far as like a fitting sequel to the original, not very good. So yeah, it has an amazing opening scene, which is so fast paced, so dynamic. It really gave me hope that this movie was gonna be really awesome, but it's not. um, the movie just gets kind of progressively worse after that. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but Zorro as a family man kind of ruins the mystique of that character for me. I think there is some fun to be had with that dynamic, and they do try to play that up in the film, but I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. The pace is kind of all over the place. It is very much more on the cartoon level. I will say, if I'm being generous, it does sort of play up that like pulpiness, which, is sort of like its roots of being like, from its like books and comics and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of fun moments. It is very engaging at times. I'm sorry I can't think of his name, but Zorro's son sort of doing Zorro-y things in the classroom was a lot of fun. Like that kid actor was pretty good. Catherine Zeta-Jones is always, oh my gosh, I love her so much. She's always a win. So that's great. Yeah, I don't know. It's very well shot. The score's good. It's just it has a lot of great pieces, but they don't really fit together that well. As for how it looks, I think overall it looks nice. I don't have a previous release to sort of compare this to. I will say just slightly some of the skin tones look kind of off. They looked a little yellowish at times. I don't know if that was just by virtue of how it was shot or, this new restoration. It's not that distracting. If you weren't looking for it, you may not really notice it. It's very subtle. There is a little bit of like blurring here and there, but overall I think it's pretty crisp and clean looking. And yeah, it sounds really good too. We got a Dolby Atmos track that is really dynamic, has a lot of range to it. This movie, is a very big budget sort of like action packed movie, so you sort of want to have something like an Atmos track to really give you a lot of depth and range, and I think you get it here. So yeah, it's a really good release. The movies, your mileage may vary. It's fine.
Yeah, you're not alone in that opinion. I think most people do not really like the movie, even if they did like Mask of Zorro. But I'm glad it did get a 4K release for fans, just because a lot of Sony's been doing a good job lately. That gives me hope for the sequel to Charlie's Angels, which I do have a soft spot for. But I was sure that they were just kind of gonna leave this on like digital 4K, but I'm glad they gave it a physical release for just to complete my collection. I still have this on DVD, so this will be a massive upgrade for me. I haven't watched it in a long time, so I can't weigh in on the quality, but if I'm going to revisit it, it's going to be in 4K.
We need to do like the Charlie's Angels pose, like it's like the
Uh, uh,
oh shit. We cannot
nope,
coordinate.
the moment's ruined. The moment's ruined.
So very off topic, but was Crispin Glover in the first one or the second one? That was the first one, right?
Um, yes, I think he was in the first one. Yeah.
He is absolutely insane in that movie. Doesn't he like eat someone's hair?
Yes. I know he sniffs, like he takes it
Uh,
as like a souvenir and like he's like sniffing it.
oh yeah, okay, yeah, okay. And I feel like that's probably how Crispin Glover really is in real life, from what I hear, but who knows? But yes, we're putting that out in the universe. Let's get some 4K Charlie's Angels.
Full throttle. Yeah. So moving on to my next title. This is also kind of more on a negative note. I don't hate this movie. I just was hoping for a little bit more from this. This is the new MVD release of Wrong Reasons, and I will say, this would be normally be a movie that I'd kind of take a look at, and I'd be like, I know this probably won't be for me. I'm going to pass on this, but I didn't do that for this release, and there's one reason, and I think you probably act the same. This is executive produced by Kevin Smith. This is the directorial debut of his friend, who's kind of done a lot of his like massive documentaries for some of his like physical media releases, Josh Rouse, and Josh Roush, sorry. And he finally decided to make a narrative debut, and so Kevin helped him out to like using his clout to like get investors and kind of invested some of his own money through like some crowdsourcing stuff and everything, and this movie was made. So being a big Kevin Smith fan, I was excited to check this out. And right off the bat, I chose to watch this with the optional introduction where like Kevin for like 9 minutes talks about how this movie came about, why he wanted to put his money in it, how he believed in this guy, all that stuff. And unfortunately, that's like one of my highlights of this viewing experience, is just hearing Kevin talk. The rest of the movie itself is fine. It's very much like an independent feature. You can kind of tell it's shot on a limited budget with actors with a little bit of a limited range. And I don't want to be mean about this. I think everyone does a okay job. It's just like not to the level that I really wanted. I think the best way to describe this movie, I'm stealing this from the director during the Q&A. He talked about what he was wanting to go for with this movie. This is a movie, it's kind of like a what if scenario. Like, what if someone like a fan could have intervened and like kept like Amy Winehouse from overdosing or like dying like that. This is kind of that, but kind of taken to like a more like fantasy extreme, where Roush's wife, Liv Roush, she plays the lead character, who's like an Australian musician who she's had kind of like a flash in the pan success, but several years ago, but then now she's kind of strung out on drugs. She gets kidnapped by a enthusiastic fan and then imprisoned until she can detox, basically. That's kind of like what's going on. And it's kind of like wrestling with what is moral, what is right, is trying to save someone through extreme means, like a worthy cause, or is it still like something to be condemned? And at the same time, you have a detective played by Ralph Garman who's trying to actually solve the kidnapping and like figure things out. So there's this kind of like positions itself like DIY or die. It kind of looks like a horror movie. It's like definitely not a horror movie. It's more kind of like a chamber piece drama / slightly thriller, but not even really, with elements of comedy. It just really never like escalates into something super fascinating. Like it can be a decent hangout movie, especially the times where the main character is kind of like having deeper conversations with her kidnapper. I really like that. All the stuff with the detective I kind of found to be a miss, just because this is a detective who once tried to make as an actor, is now a detective, and is like kind of has delusions that he can get back into acting if he can like solve this case. And none of his storyline really kind of added anything to me, so it kind of really felt like a bit of a slog, despite it not being very long. I think it's only a little bit over an hour and a half, and it never really gave me anything. And like visually, it kind of was a little bit pedestrian. It just kind of all seemed very run of the mill, and nothing really added to it. Kevin Smith does show up in like a very small role as like a cameraman, who he appears in like a handful of scenes for like a cameraman of like a news radio van, or a news van, but he's only in it for like 5 minutes at most. Not that like I should base all of my enjoyment on one person. Like I'm not like worshiping at the cult of Kevin Smith. I just really like him, and he does like I enjoy his takes on things, and I really like him in the special features interviewing people. Like I like the people involved. The movie itself just didn't work with me. Like there's a 56-minute Q&A with Kevin on stage with like the cast and everything, and that's a lot of fun, and that might be enough for some people to hang out with them for like almost an hour. But otherwise, like the movie looks audio and visual presentation's solid. The special features, like I said, there's that Q&A that lasts almost an hour, 2 commentary tracks, one with Kevin and the director Josh, and one with Josh and his like wife and some of the crew members. Once again, I love both of the tracks. I think they're both very entertaining. I do love hearing Kevin talk to Josh. It's like a lot of fun hearing their rapport and stuff. There's also like a short film and some outtakes, some deleted scenes, all that stuff. Unless you are just the most devoted Kevin Smith fan, I probably wouldn't recommend this as a movie. Maybe if you can find it to stream and you like it, this is a really good release. It's just not a movie that I feel like I would need to own if it wasn't for Kevin. So unfortunately, can't give it like a full-throated recommendation.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if his cameo was sort of an inside joke, because Bruce Willis, when they were doing Cop Out, Bruce Willis pretty famously like berated Kevin for not really knowing a lot of like camera like lingo and
Yeah.
different things with the camera. Like so I don't know. He seems like he has a sense of humor that maybe that's just sort of like a haha, like now I'm a cameraman
Yeah.
kind of thing. Did they mention that in the Q&A at all or no?
I don't remember them specifically mentioning that as like a knock on Cop Out or like his Cop Out experience. So
Yeah.
that might just be a nice like pick up from your like you're like that connects, but I'm not sure if it was intentional. It might have just been like we need to get Kevin a role in, so let's give him this.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I might. Yeah, I'm probably overthinking it, but okay.
I like that interpretation though. I do like it.
If I hear anything, I will update. But so we are getting into the steamy corner here. Hide the kids. This is a new release from Mondo Macabra, and that is Ravishing Dany. And this also has a second, right? And this also has a second feature called The Girl Can't Stop. And while they are two very, very, very different movies, it's an interesting double feature. Not interesting in a bad way, just that it's almost like Whiplash, because I did watch these back to back. Which you don't have to. That's your prerogative. But yeah, I really like the main feature. I don't normally love these old sex comedies, but I will say there's something really weird and charming about it that I was kind of along for. I was on the ride. I think what doesn't work about a lot of these sex comedies is like the ratio maybe is sometimes off, but I think the balance between the comedy and the sex is really balanced really well. And there's sort of a kind of a kitschy vibe to it, which again sort of adds this really endearing quality. Of course, the acting isn't always the best, but that's fine. That's part of the charm, I think, of these movies. It's only 83 minutes long. It's very breezy. It's something you can just throw on and have a titillating good time. And yeah, I mean the lead actor is really again endearing, is a really wise focal point. The second feature of The Girl Can't Stop is very unpleasant. So I'm not kink shaming anybody, but if your thing is like beatings and S&M and like and bondage and stuff, listen, you do you. It's consensual. That's great. Just not for me. I mean, watching it, especially on women, it just does nothing for me. Not kink shaming anybody if it does, but it just made an uncomfortable watch for me. Your mileage may vary, that's fine. But yeah, I wasn't feeling it. It's black and white. It's very depressing. It's not fun, especially again. It's such a 180 from Ravishing Dany, which is like a really fun, very light, almost sardonic sort of take on sex comedies, and I thought that was fun. The other one, not fun for me. Again, if that's your thing, you will absolutely probably love this. But I mean, there's Pornhub. If you are into these things, you can just skip a boring black and white film. But yeah, they both look really great. They are sourced from 2K scans. Both are a little rough in places, but I think that's just virtue of like the material they were working with. Overall, it still looks really fantastic. So the main feature is in color. The colors really do pop. It's not overblown or oversaturated. The colors are balanced really nicely. The second feature, black and white, fitting because it's very depressing and stuff for me. But it also looks fine. There are again a few rough spots, but you can really tell that a lot of effort has been put into restoring both of these films. And this one does not have a booklet, so they have like the sort of like red case edition that has like liner notes. This does not. Y'all will also notice that it is a multi-region. So if you're curious about that, you know, there's that information. But yeah, pretty fun. Mondo never really disappoints me. I always have a good time, even if their films aren't maybe necessarily what I would watch. There's always just something weird and interesting to kind of keep me hooked on this label. So kind of uneven, but I will say I did like Ravishing Dany. I think that would be something I would probably watch again. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, if I were to pick up that release, I think I'd probably just stick with that one and just avoid the other one because that does sound unpleasant. Sticking in a sexual, steamy corner, kind of, but once again, not a comedy, definitely not. This is the latest from Cult Epics, and this is, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago that I was going to be covering this because you were covering something with the same title. This is Broken Mirrors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the sophomore feature from Marlene Goris. I covered her release of A Question of Silence a few months ago, and this features a lot of the same performers in here, and this is once again kind of taking on like female power and kind of sexual dynamics and all that kind of stuff within this one. I would say I think I like the narrative of A Question of Silence a little bit more, but I do think this is a very powerful movie in its own right, if not just slightly more bleak. This deals with a brothel of sex workers. There's a new woman who is coming to like join them and like kind of learn the ropes of the business. And through this, during this time of like her kind of getting acclimated to her new job and figuring out how she feels about it and stuff, there's also a man in the city who is one of their clients. It's kind of kept a mystery, like, but it says on the back, it's one of their clients, but you don't know which one of the people who might be coming in is this person who is killing women around the city. And at the beginning of this movie, he's just like kidnapped a housewife. and is like keeping her. So there's like parallel stories of like this woman being kept in captivity, while also these sex workers are kind of just like dealing with their life at this brothel and commiserating, but also kind of like having a little bit of empowerment. But this really is a story about like power dynamics within like sex work. And I think the parallel stories are meant to kind of convey the fact that like any client could be this person who is killing these women, and anytime a woman is going into like this situation with a man, they don't have any kind of protection with like, because men are terrible a lot of the times, and they kind of like treat women like trash, and just I kind of how, oh, I paid for you, I can do whatever I want with you, instead of like having something that's more, having more laid out rules that people can follow. Like there's a way to things that people should do things, but unfortunately not, and women are left vulnerable. So it's kind of exploring a lot of those different types of themes. And while not always the most pleasant watch, I think it is very powerful. And I think the way these women are like do interact with these men and how things ultimately end up, it's not completely like super bleak, but it's bleak in the sense of like women, this is how, what women have to deal with, whether or not they are sex workers or they're just women living in the world dealing with like toxic masculinity. But overall, I think it's a very rich, powerful movie. Some really evocative themes, really good performances. A lot of the women who come over from A Question of Silence do a really good job. Some of the new performers are also very, very interesting and very good in their roles. Doesn't go on for too long or anything. Overall, very solid follow-up to A Question of Silence from Marlene Goris. This comes from a 4K restoration of the 35 millimeter negative. It looks really nice and filmic. Not a lot of artifacts or anything like that. Everything resolves well. There are two mono tracks included on here, one DTS, one LPCM. Both of them sound really good. From what I sampled, I listened to, I believe, the LPCM in full and sampled the DTS. Both sounded really good. This comes with a commentary track from a film historian, and there's only one archival interview, but I found it to be very interesting. It's about 9 minutes long, with a sex worker advocate on a interview show in the Netherlands. So it's just like a 10-minute interview of just like this woman, I believe she's from the US, who is talking about how the differences between like sex work and like being criminalized in the US and how things are viewed in the Netherlands and how things could be improved. And then it kind of makes you sad knowing that sex work hasn't really been improved because like people's reactions to it in the US and like the prudishness and how people could be more safe if things were better legislated, all that type of stuff. So kind of get you thinking even more. But so not super deep special features, but the archival interview and the commentary track are really nice, and it looks really nice. So if the story seems interesting to you, I would recommend it. Broken Mirrors is a solid movie. If it sounds a bit too depressing for you, I understand, but I think it's worthwhile if you are able, if you think you can handle it.
That does sound really interesting, and I do like when you can have some features that will give you some more context. The material, like having a sex work advocate giving some information like that is pretty interesting. I covered I believe it was the Oyster Princess not super long ago, and really excited because this is another Ernst Lubitsch collection. The doll. It also has a second feature, short feature, I Don't Want to Be a Man, which is really fascinating. It's not feature film length, but I'll get into it. briefly. But yeah, the doll is definitely one that fans have been really excited for. I love that we're slowly starting to get into some really early Ernst Lubitsch stuff. And this one's interesting. Have you seen this yet or
Not
okay.
yet.
It is buckle in. It is some nightmare fuel. Really you can tell is early Ernst Lubitsch because even though I don't think he really kind of refined his style until he came to America. You have a lot of like social commentary, especially classism, that's very prevalent in this. You just have this very whimsical, surreal. It's very akin to like Oyster Princess because that also kind of had this dreamlike, really weird, almost dreamlike. And this, I think, takes that and runs with it a little bit more even. So there is an actress that's playing this lifelike doll, and it's terrifying because she just has this like fixed grin. And clearly it's an actress playing a doll, but it's really, really unsettling. um, so, if that is a trigger for you, creepy women trying to act like dolls, or if that's your thing, again, we're not kink shaming as long as it's consensual. You do you. But yeah, so this was from 1919. That's kind of wild to think about this being over 100 years old, but it looks really good. It's not pristine, of course. A movie that is again over 100 years old at this point is never going to look probably pristine, but the fact that this isn't a lost film and it's complete and it looks really good, you can tell this has been restored. We do get a really good audio commentary for both films from Joseph McBride. He was the author of How Did Lubitsch Do It? And the commentary track is really fascinating. I think it's definitely worth checking out. It's funny, I was talking about sex comedies because this was sort of a proto sex comedy. It wasn't as in your face about it as Ravishing Dany, but there definitely is a sexual element that is very playful and kind of probably risque, especially probably for the time. I Don't Want to Be a Man is a very short feature. In hindsight, it's fascinating because you were talking about Sita Chucky and talking about gender identity. So this, obviously, from the title, you can sort of tell, this is about a tomboy. I don't know if we have retired that term, but she is somebody that is maybe questioning her identity. Although it's certainly played for more laughs. It's not like a serious sort of critique on that, but it is interesting to kind of see in the time period. So this was 1918. So you're not going to get a nuanced approach to this subject, but it is fascinating to kind of see where we were with that at the time. And it's very like I don't want to spoil anything, but it is very bold, I will say, for the time. There's a commentary track on that as well, which provides a lot of really great context and information about the making of this film. I'm really excited. I know there's still some early Lubitsch that we haven't got on home video yet, so my hope is they keep doing this series. They look great, sound great. I love commentary tracks, especially on like an older film like this, because it gives you all that rich sort of context and information that helps me appreciate it even more when I watch it again, which I inevitably will. So yeah, really good.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Lubitsch, so I'm interested to check that one out as soon as I have a second. So I'm going to do a double feature real quick. These are two titles through the Vinegar Syndrome Partner Label program. So I have one with Enjoy ETR Media, Enjoy the Ride Media, which is Don't Fall in Love with Yourself, and then I have Give Me Pity from Utopia. But I'm going to start with Don't Fall in Love with Yourself. So both of these films kind of deal loosely like with music in different ways, not so loosely with this one. So Don't Fall in Love with Yourself is a documentary on the musician Justin Pearson, who at the beginning of the film, he's listing all the bands he's been a part of, and he lists about 15 or so. But he's probably best known for a band called The Locust. So that's the reversible cover art. And I've done a movie like this in the past where I have never listened to this band. I'm not familiar with them at all. Some of the bands that they said they toured with, I'm like, oh, I know them, but I never listened to The Locust. And to be honest, their music would not really be for me from what I can hear. But that does not make the documentary less interesting. I do think it's a very compelling documentary about this musician in the punk scene, and just kind of like his kind of a little bit, he had a bit of a tumultuous like childhood, and you kind of get a little bit of background on him like through talking head interviews, through with himself, and through his various like family, his mom and his band members and other members of the scene who kind of like have toured with him or just been friends with him throughout the years. And through all these talking heads, you get to like a little bit more of a well-rounded portrait of Justin. And you do seem to feel that he is overall a good person. He's just maybe like a maniac sometimes, and he doesn't suffer fools. And he kind of just like is just crazy at shows sometimes. But I think overall, while watching his journey and just kind of like digging into this whole punk scene and everything, and just kind of the punk aesthetic, I had fun with it. I think it's not a great documentary, but it's a perfectly serviceable documentary that I found pretty entertaining. And if you're a fan, especially, I think you'll love it. As a non-fan, I was just like, oh, this is interesting. I'm not going to be searching at their music, but I had a good time. I enjoyed it. I love music documentaries, so I'm like prime audience, even like I said, even if I'm not a fan of the music. So yeah, really well-rounded documentary. Nice HD transfer. It's a mixture of our new interviews, which are crisp and clean, and archival footage, which is not always crisp and clean, but that's the nature of documentaries. Sometimes you're working with footage that's not exactly clear, and but it looks the best it can look in high definition. Sounds really great, which you want with a documentary dealing with music or anything dealing with music. This includes a director's commentary track, which is enlightening. 23 minutes of additional footage that's not used in the movie. And then there's also 4 live performances included here, which range from about 12 to 25 minutes, I believe. Like at different like venues or like in-store performances. These are like archival shows that are kind of peppered throughout the movie that you get in full, with like a brief narration at the top from Justin that kind of sets the scene. Like, okay, we were here, we were touring with this person, this is what was going on. And that's pretty fun too for fans that might like have never been able to see this footage otherwise. And then there's like a trailer and stuff. So overall, really good release of Don't Fall in Love with Yourself. My next film, I'm still formulating my opinion on this, because if I would have like talked about this movie a couple days ago, I'd probably be like, I didn't really like it, but it's really stuck with me. And that, like I said, is Give Me Pity from Utopia. It's kind of like infected my brain, and I'm like, did I like this? I'm not sure. This is from director Amanda Kramer, who did Please Baby Please, which I think you saw last year. And I reviewed that recently as well on Blu-ray, also through Vinegar Syndrome, but through Music Box Films instead of Utopia. And I like that film better upon first watch. It's a little bit more my vibe. Like it's a very distinct style, but I really liked what that was delivering. Give Me Pity, it has elements of that kind of style, but it's also very surreal. And the best way I can describe this is it feels like something that Adult Swim would put on, kind of like Too Many Cooks or something, where you're like, what the hell is happening right there? So if that's kind of your vibe, I think you'll like this. This is set in the 80s. This is, I believe the character Sissy St. Clair is finally getting her big breakthrough and getting like a television special on a Saturday night. And this film is her television special, but it's very surreal. And it's like basically her going through like kind of like this variety show and just like putting on dance numbers and talking to the audience and stuff. And you get like some woo, like audience like reactions from her. But it's basically her and a camera. And then there's like a menacing spirit like off to the side of the frame that's kind of like haunting her, and she's kind of like freaking out. But then it's also more an exploration of her insecurities and just like her desire for fame and wanting to put on such a good show so maybe she can finally get a taste of fame and quell her insecurities and stuff. It just kind of like is dealing with all of that. So it's very surreal. There's a lot of dance numbers and musical numbers and a lot of odd comedy that like I think would definitely appeal to the Adult Swim crowd. Like I wasn't laughing out loud pretty much at all, but I I was like transfixed and I was like, what is happening? And then there's like different musical numbers and like dance sequences that are like, well, it keep replaying in my head. And I'm like, did I like this movie? I don't know. It's a really distinct movie. And if that, like I said, if you like kind of like surreal, dreamy odysseys that kind of like Adult Swim / Lynchian vibes, I think you'll like Give Me Pity. I'm still I don't know. But this does look really nice. It has that like dreamy, soft 80s aesthetic that it's not like the most like pinpoint, precise, like crisp picture, but it's like what this film is supposed to look like. Sounds really good. It has an audio commentary with Kramer and the star Sophie von Hazelberg. This also includes some of the dance rehearsal footage. It's like 20 minutes long, and then some like photos from the production. So pretty well-rounded release. Just to give you like an idea, this played at like Fantasia Fest and Fantastic Fest, and so if you like those types of movies also, which I know you do, this is recommended for you. Otherwise, like proceed with caution. Maybe watch the trailer, see if like you're picking up on the vibes and stuff. But it's really unique. And oh, one thing I want to mention: both of these do come from, like I said, the Vinegar Syndrome Partners labels. If you want a slipcover, like a really nice slipcover, if there's some left, you can get those exclusively through Vinegar Syndrome's website. Otherwise, you'll pick up the standard editions that look like this. But if you're a slipcover fan, make sure you go to Vinegar Syndrome's website and put in an order before they sell out, because they will sell out. You don't know how long it's going to be.
Yes. Please Baby Please is great. I know our editor Andre is also a big fan of that. So shout out for that. And yes, I definitely love that aesthetic, that style, that vibe. I'm actually probably gonna order that this weekend. I did check on Vinegar Syndrome. If you do want a slipcover of that one, they have 600-ish copies copies left. So yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely sold. So okay, you either love him or hate him, but Wes Anderson I really like. I love his stuff. And this is his latest film, Asteroid City. Now did this have a 4K release?
Unfortunately not. I hope it's one, like I think we'll probably talk about this in the next few weeks, but Universal's like returning to some of their Blu-ray only releases and releasing them on 4K, like Megan and Cocaine Bear and stuff. I'm not sure if this will be the same, but I hope this does get a 4K.
Yeah, because well, we'll get into it, but here is the inside. Here's the back. So there will be a digital copy in there as well. It's really fun. It's certainly like, it's sort of like Kevin Smith. Either you like his take on things or you don't. This is very much Wes Anderson to the max. Like it starts out in black and white, and it's Bryan Cranston, and it automatically has this artifice to it, and it's very like layered in the artifice, which again, if you like Wes Anderson, you are going to be into this bespoke, sort of very whimsical, charming aesthetic. And I like it. I love the dry wit. Again, the visuals are always just breathtaking. Use of colors. I mean, I'm not telling anybody anything new. This is Wes Anderson. It has a lot of charm. It has heart. It's offbeat. I love the addition of UFOs, and I love Jeff Goldblum in this. I won't spoil it for anybody, but it's kind of amazing. And yeah, is it style over substance? Maybe slightly. Did I still have a damn great time watching it? Absolutely. It is kind of strange. Clearly, it feels like Tom Hanks's character was maybe going to be Bill Murray. I haven't really looked up why he's not in this. He's usually in Wes Anderson movies, I know. Just speculating. There's been a lot of like not great things coming out about Bill Murray, allegedly. So I don't know if that's the case or not, but I don't know. It was still really good. Not one of my favorite, maybe, but it definitely kind of harkens back to maybe like some older Wes Anderson. And I still have not seen French Dispatch, so I'm not sure like where how my rankings will, come out. But what did you think of this?
I actually have not seen it yet. I'm excited to check it out. I just revisited one that I thought was one of my favorites and reconfirmed it that it was one of my favorites, The Life Aquatic, a few weeks ago, and I still really love that. It's like people don't really like that one as much, but I freaking love it. So I'm excited for a new Wes Anderson because I always love his work. Even if like French Dispatch and to a lesser extent Isle of Dogs was like slightly lesser tier for me, I still really like them.
Yeah, I think like it might again, it kind of changes on my mood, but like Moonrise Kingdom is always just like a cozy, like comfort movie. I can always just kind of watch that. So yeah, I'll have to like formulate my rankings. I will get back to y'all. I'm sure you're on bated breath, but
Yeah, I'm very excited for that one. I didn't get to check it out in theater, so very excited to check it out. My next title is another partner label of Vinegar Syndrome, this time with Deaf Crocodile, and it is Heroic Times, which is a Hungarian film, Hungarian animated. So here is the disc, and then it comes with a booklet here. I'll kind of show that off a little bit. So you have the front here, back, and then some essays and artwork and everything. And so yeah, great, great release or great packaging. No double-sided, but you can get kind of like one of the landscape shots here. And like the past two films that I talked about, if you want a slipcover, you can also check on the Vinegar Syndrome website. There might still be some left. And from what I remember, I think that one looked pretty cool as well. So I've been talking, I talked, they really recently released The Pied Piper, which I talked about, I think last month. Which was stop motion animation, and they've done like a lot of really cool like animated releases, like Delta Space Mission in the past. I love getting like this European animation that's like super inventive, like way outside of kind of like the Disney norm and everything. Which I love Disney. I talked about Cinderella like last week or the week before, and I love classic Disney, but there's something special whenever you're like playing with the form, and this is like definitely more like adult animation. I'm not talking about like graphic sex or anything, but there's like violence and all that stuff. But what I really found especially interesting about this is the animation style itself. It doesn't feel like you're watching a traditionally animated film. It feels like you are kind of like exploring an oil painting, and kind of the way the camera moves throughout this like journey. Like they're just like figures that are not clearly defined, that are kind of like shifting into different forms and stuff. It's just like the way this narrative evolves, it's just so gorgeous. And I love like I said, it's like an oil painting come to life. It's visually like stunning. And it's like I've rarely seen stuff like this, and it's just amazing. This is based on I think like an or like a epic Hungarian poem that kind of deals with like power dynamics and leadership and stuff. So it's kind of like narrated by like a central figure who's like kind of like going throughout like kind of the Hungarian countryside, and like meeting different like clans, and eventually meeting up with like this like Hungarian ruler. So there's like clashes of like these power dynamics and like class dynamics, and there's a lot of just like introspection about like power and all that kind of stuff. So it's like more like heady, thematically weighty themes compared to like what kids are often fed these days. But it's very interesting, and like I said, it's very worthwhile for adults. This comes from a 4K scan of the original elements by the National Film Institute of Hungary. This comes with an audio commentary track by a film historian. There's also three classic animated shorts included in this. There are two lengthy interviews conducted by Dennis Bartok from Deaf Crocodile. One is with kind of the head of the National Film Institute of Hungary, which lasts about 56 minutes in length, which is really cool. You kind of get like a little bit of like history of like animation in Hungary and all like kind of just like other film history in Hungary as well. There's also a 26-minute interview with one of the animators of this film who provided a lot of great insight about what it was like to animate this film, work with the director, and kind of some of his work outside of this as well. Other than that, there's just like a trailer, I believe. But overall, really well-rounded release. If you love animation and like stuff that's pushing the boundaries of like what you would think of animation to be, Heroic Times is a lot of fun. Don't be afraid of the subtitles. It's worth it, and just like a really great feature. I really enjoyed it.
There are definitely a lot of slipcover editions still available. I looked that up really quick. Yeah, it looks really cool. I do, like you, I kind of love other country and their animation style and how they recontextualize the art form. Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. So I have a documentary next. It is called The Melt Goes On Forever, the art of David Hammons. And back here. So yeah, this was really a cool watch because I had never heard of this artist. And now it kind of makes me want to kind of take a deep dive into more of his stuff. Um, it's he has like a really interesting range of work. One of the very first stories they tell is about him selling these snowballs and how, you know, sort of like how Warhol did with the Campbell's soup cans. It was sort of playfully making fun of the art form and like what is considered art. But that's not to say that his stuff was, I don't want to say that's not serious, but like he definitely did delve into some really serious topics with his art, including, I forget what he called it, but it was like these like body impression works, which is really fascinating. Like they were explaining like how he would do that. Like he would like press his body up against the canvas, and this is like something other artists have done, but he had a really interesting, unique way of doing it. He would do these impressions, and then he would like paint a picture sort of based on that. And he did a series on the Watts injustice and other really, you know, prevalent topics in the African American community. So it was really interesting to kind of see like how his work had not only evolved, but just like the man himself and, you know, his eccentric personality. He was really interesting. He rarely, if ever, gave interviews. So yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. It's like one of those that like I just think it's so cool when you learn about like a new artist or new to you, and it just kind of makes you want to like learn more about him, more about his contemporaries. So I think it starts a really interesting conversation. And you know, it's a lot. It's very heavy at times, you know, but that's appropriate because you know he was talking about really stuff that is unfortunately still very relevant today as it was in the 60s when he was really you know, coming into his own in his artwork. So really interesting. I kind of wish there would have been like some featurettes or like a commentary track or some you know, special feature. There's nothing on here. But yeah, it's a really good documentary. Odds are, if you want to like try before you buy, I've been trying to link for the Kino Now. That's their video on demand, so you're still supporting Kino, and you know you don't have to commit to buying a DVD if you don't want to. But yeah, I like that option because again, you can still check it out. You can still support this awesome label. So I will link that in the description if you want to check it out before you purchase it. Or, I mean, I think it's worth a blind buy, especially if you like art, especially art that is very, like I said, unfortunately, very relevant and, provocative.
Yeah, I'm a big documentary fan, so that sounds right up my alley. I'm glad you covered that one because there are a lot of great documentaries that come out every year, and I can't keep track of every single one of them, but I'm glad that one is now on my radar. I'm definitely going to make an effort to check that one out. Um, my next title, I'm sorry, a little bit while you were talking about that, I had to get ready because this is an epic release, and I had to get all my notes. I have to get myself mentally prepared for this. Just because there's a lot I have to get through, and I don't want to take 40 minutes to get through all this. I'm going to try to streamline this the best that I know how. I have my notes over here because I am about to talk about a 12 film set. And whenever you watch that many films within a week or two period, some of it gets a little bit jumbled in here, especially with these types of films. This is the new release from Shout Factory, or I believe they're Shout Studios now. I think they've changed their name. Of Shaw Brothers Classics, Volume 2, 12 films here. And the reason I need these notes is because, yes, a lot of these do kind of tackle similar kind of concepts and themes and everything. And they're just kind of, I would just say, don't be like me, most likely, and watch all of these within a week period. Give yourself some breathing room. But overall, I still had a really great time, and I do want to go through each of these and give them a little bit. I'm going to try to keep it to maybe a 2 sentence maximum description, and I'll kind of give my overall impressions and stuff. But yeah, first disc. So we have Lady of Steel and Butcher's 5. And what I really like about this set is each film is given their own disc. So you have Lady of Steel and Brothers 5 over here. I will show the reversible artwork. So got that here, that here. So, okay, Lady of Steel. What do I... Lady of Steel is a woman kicking ass and avenging her parents. That's basically what that is. You got Chang Pei Pei, I believe, who's a classic. She was in Come Drink With Me, which I believe you talked about from Arrow Video last year. She kicks ass in this one too. She does a great job. Brothers 5. That one is... there are 5 separated brothers who eventually find out they do have each other as brothers. They come together and then they kind of form a Voltron to fight the forces of evil. They all kind of lock together because they all have each individual talents that they kind of come together and fight the forces of evil. So that's Brothers 5. Both of these are pretty fun releases. Next 2 films are Crimson Charm and The Shadow Whip. So there's the back here. And then once again, so Shadow Whip, Crimson Charm, and then once again, reversible cover art. So got that here. So you get mostly the full artwork instead of half and half. So Crimson Charm is just cracking myself up at what I wrote on some of these. So a powerful leader's son is killed for being an a-hole, and then that dude seeks revenge, and then there is a one-armed lady who is helping out at some point. So once again, just revenge from a powerful figure for his son acting a damn fool. The Shadow Whip is a revenge tale, but with a whip. So if you want to see people, a woman whipping ass with a whip, you're in for a treat with the Shadow Whip. It's a lot of fun. Next up, we have The Delightful Force and The Devil's Mirror. So once again, back artwork. So The Devil's Mirror and the Delightful Forest, which the Delightful Forest is the name of a restaurant. So Devil's Mirror, Delightful Forest. Delightful Forest. I like this one pretty well. This is about. It kind of evolves in a very interesting way. There is a prisoner who is being transported to this prison, but then he is ordered to by like the warden type person to like go defend this restaurant from vagabonds. There's some fuckery with that as well. But while he is doing this, he gets super drunk at every restaurant, every stop he is on this journey. He says that getting drunk gets him supercharged. So getting drunk and whooping ass and then some deception. That's what Delightful Forest is. The Devil's Mirror is devil girls and two supernatural mirrors cause chaos. So basically like this evil lady turning people into like kind of like almost zombie-esque figures with mirrors and draining life force. So it's a little bit supernatural, but still very much within the martial arts realm. Ooh, next to Man of Iron and the Water Margin. So here's this. Water Margin, Man of Iron. Man of Iron is the one of the more contemporary movies. I believe it's probably set in like the 50s or 40s. Man of Iron. A man wins big at gambling, and the people he wins from doesn't like that, so they want revenge. So he gets into some shit. And the Water Margin is based on like an ancient Hong Kong lore. It's basically a group of rebels, about like 104, I believe, rebels taking on a large group of like large armies and like keeping them at bay and stuff. So it's like Little Man versus like David Goliath versus story, but like steeped within Chinese lore. Just 4 more movies. Like I said, I am very tired. We have the next, The Bride from Hell and Heroes 2. So got that. And then once again, Heroes 2, Bride from Hell. Bride from Hell is interesting because it is the only. It kind of stands out within the set as being like a little bit different in that it's more of a horror movie, where at the beginning of the film, a woman is she comes back from the dead as a ghost after being several years prior she was like wronged and raped, and now she's back for revenge. But this one starts out really weird because these 2 guys who come across this ghost, they run away and then find shelter in this house, and then they end up like quickly getting married to these women who they accidentally spy getting like dressed. So they're like, oh, in order to not be dishonored, now we need to marry you. And I'm just like, what the hell's going on in this movie? It's very wild. But otherwise, it's like a ghost story. It's pretty fun. And it was a nice change of pace within all of this. Heroes 2 is a solid one. It's just another kind of like team up martial arts tale. And I think it's mostly known for having Alexander Fushing, who is on a lot of the Shasko movies from the Arrow video sets. I really like him, and it's just kind of like a kick-ass movie with a really great finale full of like action and all like confrontation and everything. Final 2. These are like the playful weapons disc of the set. This is the Flying Guillotine and the Dragon Missile. So these are for fans of weapons. Dragon Missile, Flying Guillotine, and people might remember I talked about the Flying Guillotine 2 from 88 Films sometime last year, I believe, or earlier this spring. So I'm very glad to have now finally seen the original version, which like the title delivers. It's a flying guillotine. There's like this bladed basketball on a whip that you can like throw, and then like gets embedded, and then you yank it back and it decapitates people. It's pretty freaking sweet. Like it's one of the best like movies in this. So if you like people getting like tons of people getting decapitated, perfect movie for you. The Dragon Missile is kind of the same. I think they're like, we're having fun with weapons. So the Dragon Missile is just basically like really deadly boomerangs that people throw. So if you want deadly boomerangs, the Dragon Missile, it'll serve you well. So those are my 12 films in this, and complete with all the artwork and all that stuff. And so all these go in this box set. I like that they're each given their own disc, and these are all come from restorations provided by Celestial Pictures. And because of that, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It mostly looks really nice, but I do have to admit there is little bits here and there of like DNR, so a little bit smoothed over more than you would want. There is a little bit of softness, I think, probably inherent to some of the elements, where it's like, oh, this looks like it maybe like wasn't completely not framed, because I don't want to seem like it's like misframed, but like focus. It's misfocused a little bit, probably when it was captured. There's a little bit of like black crush here and there in like the darkest nighttime moments. There's not a ton of those, but overall they look very nice. I don't want to make this seem like it's a bad set. It's just like they're probably a little bit too much digital manipulation in some spots for some fans, but overall it looks very nice. The audio holds up very well. Most of these just come with the original Hong Kong audio. There's like 4 or 5 movies that come with an English dub for those who want that kind of like throwback experience, but they do have the original Hong Kong or the Cantonese, I believe, languages. There's also every film gets a commentary track. Some get 2. There are 16 commentary tracks totals in this set. I did not have a chance to listen to all of them, but I have sampled them and they seem very informative. I look forward to revisiting these. There are a couple of new interviews and some archival interviews. There's a new a 77-minute piece on the Shaw Brothers, like as an entity, just from their creation to kind of their downfall a little bit. There is another 56-minute interview with film historian Tony Raines, who gets more into the horror side of Shaw Brothers, which is fun. And then, just like I said, an array of other interviews with some of the stars and like producers, all that kind of stuff. So this is a stacked set for fans, and like there's been so much great Shaw Brothers and martial arts content over the last few years. Like I said, Arrow Videos put out stuff. There was a first volume which I have not been able to pick up yet. There's a 3rd volume coming soon. 88 Films has a lot of stuff. People are going bananas with martial arts stuff. It's really fun, and I highly recommend this set from Shout Factory. If you're a fan of this genre, of this studio, fantastic. So yeah, Shaw Brothers Collection Volume 2 is a home run.
Yeah, that looks awesome. I definitely like that, have some like horror stuff in there, a little bit of everything. Flying Guillotine is one that I'm particularly excited for because it's one that I've heard of. Which one would you say is like your favorite? Like, what's the standout for you?
Out of these, I mean, Flying Guillotine is pretty fun. I believe probably that, and probably Brothers 5, just because I like the Voltron aspect. But there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Nice. That's cool that you said that there's a volume 3 coming up as well. So I have a treat for y'all. I am ending on not a movie, but a movie soundtrack. This is Evil Dead Rise. And the back here. I know this is really gorgeous looking. And we'll open this up.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Very cool. I will try to very delicately take these out so you can see what the vinyls look like. Yeah, so they're in these like little like protective things, which is nice. Just gingerly take them out. So I got to listen to these last night, and it was really fun.
That's nice.
Cool. Um, yeah. So I reviewed the 4K of this movie. Loved it. It was like one of my favorite movies of like in recent years. I just think it's such a fun, um, like I'm a big Evil Dead fan. So the vinyls all look the same, but I'll show you what the other ones look like here. But yeah, so it's a really nice go. Yeah, it's a fun movie. I'm such a big Evil Dead fan, and I think they did right by fans. And the music's great. So I was, like I said, I was listening to it, and I love just not only how eerie it is, but I like how they use like vocals mixed in with some of the tracks that really just add a layer of just creepiness to it. Um, we are almost into spooky time, October. I'm ready. So, this is kind of like perfect to have to throw on. So again, here's track list. I think they did a really nice presentation overall. Again, really cool artwork. And I will link in the description where you can get a copy of your own. I am very happy that I got a copy of this to talk about, review. Not a music expert, but I can say I do love the soundtrack. The Evil Dead has always had a really interesting sort of evolution to its soundtrack, and I like how this feels like a really interesting next phase of that. Like they use kind of the similar sort of like strings and little like notes that feel very what you're used to from the Evil Dead series. But then it also doesn't feel beholden to that, and it adds kind of its own sort of flair to it. So it's a really nice kind of balance between those two. So love it. Again, that's super creepy, beautiful looking. My husband took a look at that and was like, yikes, that's a little too much for me. That's fine. I love it. I love the artwork. I love all the hard work that was put into this. Highly recommend it. I wanted to like end on a really high note. And this was a very horror centric episode, which is fun. We are probably going to a little closer to Halloween do I guess our second annual horror, Oops All Horror Edition. So if there's something upcoming that you want to particularly see, and we can accommodate that, chime in the comments. That's a good segue into my obligatory please subscribe. We do this every week. It's really exciting. We almost have 7,000 subs on Geek Vibes YouTube channel. That's great. That's so awesome. I see a lot of y'all are coming back to our weekly show. That's so cool. We appreciate all the likes, the comments, all of that stuff really helps. And thank you for hanging out with us.